awesome aha moments when your students make connections and solve problems like pros?
Yeah,
We're diving deep into how to make those moments happen more often.
sounds great.
We've got a ton of resources to guide us.
Okay.
Guides for educators, practical tips, FAQs, even a cool podcast script someone dreamed up.
Interesting.
Our mission,
Yay.
to give you actionable strategies to implement higher order thinking
Okay.
so you can empower your students to be those incredible critical thinkers and problem solvers we know they can be.
I like it.
And one of our secret weapons is this framework called Bloom's Taxonomy.
Bloom's Taxonomy. Okay.
It's like a staircase leading students to those higher levels of thinking step by step.
Like from remembering facts to like analyzing information and evaluating arguments and creating new things.
Exactly. You got it.
That's cool. It's fascinating how often we as teachers, get a little stuck on that first step.
Remembering.
Remembering, we drill vocab, dates, formulas,
Right.
but higher order thinking, it pushes us beyond that.
So true.
It's about what students do with that knowledge, how they use it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If I'm a teacher who's been focusing on, mainly rote memorization, what's a practical first step toward bringing in more higher order thinking?
One of the most powerful things you can change is the type of questions you ask.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of just checking if they remember something,
Yeah.
try asking questions that make them analyze, evaluate, create.
Oh, I see. So instead of asking, what is photosynthesis?
Right.
I might ask, how would you design an experiment to test the rate of photosynthesis under different conditions?
There you go.
Okay.
That's moving them up Bloom's taxonomy
Gotcha.
from just remembering
Yeah.
to applying and analyzing.
Cool.
And you'll be amazed at the thinking you'll unlock.
That's really exciting. But let's be realistic for a sec. I can imagine some teachers listening right now thinking,
Yeah.
okay, sounds great in theory, but how do I actually fit this into my already packed schedule?
Right.
Is higher order thinking just one more thing on our overflowing plates?
Yeah, I hear you. It's a valid concern. But one of the things that comes up in a lot of these resources is this idea that higher order thinking doesn't have to be this separate, time-consuming add-on.
Right.
It's more about making small but intentional shifts in how you teach.
Okay. Yeah. Can you give us an example? What's one simple change a teacher could make, like tomorrow,
Sure.
to start incorporating higher order thinking?
Absolutely. One strategy that comes up again and again is think, pair, share.
Think of pair, share.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's powerful for encouraging deeper thinking and discussion.
Right.
You ask a question that needs some analysis or evaluation, give them a few minutes to think on their own.
Yeah.
Then they chat with a partner
Okay.
and then share with the whole class.
Think, pair, share. I've used that before. But I never really thought of it as a strategy for, specifically for higher order thinking.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. That individual reflection time, it gives them a chance to process and come up with their own ideas.
Right.
And then talking with a partner helps them refine their thinking
Yeah, exactly.
and see other perspectives.
And it doesn't take up a ton of extra time,
That's great.
but it can really deepen their understanding.
Okay. I'm seeing how those small shifts can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So we've talked about questioning. We've talked about think, pair, share. What are some other practical strategies for bringing higher order thinking to life in the classroom?
Well, another one that's a natural fit is project-based learning.
Ah, yes. Project-based learning. That's where students get to tackle real-world problems, right?
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And in the process, they're naturally doing all those higher order thinking things. Research, analysis, evaluation, problem solving, creating.
One of our sources had this great example about students designing a sustainable energy solution for their community.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a perfect example of project-based learning in action. They'd have to analyze energy consumption patterns,
Right.
evaluate different renewable energy sources, research the pros and cons, and then work together to design a plan that actually meets their community's needs.
It's great.
That's hitting all those higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy.
Absolutely. And it's inherently engaging because it connects their learning to a real-world issue,
It does.
something that impacts their lives.
For sure.
They're not just memorizing facts.
Right.
They're applying their knowledge to solve a problem that matters.
It's like problem solving with a purpose.
Mm.
But let's be honest. Sometimes project-based learning can feel a little overwhelming for teachers.
I understand that.
It can be a lot to plan and manage.
It can be. But the sources also emphasize you don't have to jump into the deep end right away.
Oh, that's good.
You can start small. Okay.
With a mini project that has a few higher order thinking elements.
So instead of launching a full-blown community sustainability project.
Hmm.
I might start with a smaller project where they have to research and present different solutions to, like, a local environmental issue.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
as you and your students get more comfortable with the process, you can gradually increase the complexity and the scope.
Okay. That's really helpful advice. It's encouraging, no, we can start small and build from there.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of building, one concept that comes up is scaffolding.
Yeah, scaffolding, right.
Can you explain what that means in the context of higher order thinking?
Absolutely. Scaffolding is all about giving students support
Okay.
as they're learning new concepts and skills,
Mm-hmm.
and then you gradually remove that support as they become more independent.
So it's like the scaffolding on a building.
Exactly.
It's there temporarily while the structure's being built,
Yeah,
and then it's removed once the building can stand on its own.
that's the idea. Okay, that's a great analogy. So how might we use scaffolding to support students specifically when they're doing higher order thinking activities?
One way is to break down those complex tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're asking them to write a persuasive essay,
Hmm.
you might first give them a graphic organizer
Okay.
to help them brainstorm their ideas and organize their thoughts.
Right.
And then as they get more confident, you might gradually remove that support and encourage them to create their own outlines or brainstorming strategies.
Exactly. It's about meeting students where they are and providing the right support to succeed.
Precisely. And as they gain mastery, we gradually release that support and empower them to become more independent learners.
This is making so much sense. So we've talked about questioning, think, pair, share, project-based learning, scaffolding.
Yeah.
What else do we need to know to really bring higher order thinking to life in our classrooms?
Well, one important consideration is technology.
Oh, of course.
Technology can be a really powerful tool for promoting higher order thinking, but it's important to use it intentionally and strategically.
That makes sense. It's not about just like throwing technology at a problem.
Right.
It's about choosing the right tools for the right task.
Exactly. And the sources highlight a few specific tools that can be really effective.
Oh, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights?
One that stands out is Kahoot. Have you ever used that in your classroom?
Kahoot is a
So-
classic.
Mm.
It's so fun and engaging. My students absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But I usually just use it for like review or assessment.
Okay.
How can I use it to promote higher order thinking?
That's a great question. Instead of just asking factual recall questions, try using Kahoots
Yeah.
to pose scenarios or problems that require students to analyze information,
Oh, interesting.
make decisions, and defend their choices.
Well, for example, instead of asking what is the capital of France,
Right.
I might present a scenario where students have to choose the best location for a new business based on a set of criteria.
Exactly. That requires them to analyze the information, weigh the pros and cons, make a decision based on evidence, and because Kahoots is so interactive and engaging, it can really get them excited about thinking critically.
I love that idea. I'm already thinking of ways I can revamp my Kahoot. Yeah. Quizzes.
Yeah.
To bring in more higher order thinking. What are some other tech tools that can help us on this journey?
Another one that's mentioned is Padlet.
Padlet, that's like a virtual bulletin board, right?
Exactly. It's a great tool for brainstorming, collaborating, sharing ideas. You can create different boards for different topics.
Oh, cool.
Students can post text, images, links, even videos.
And because it's so visual and interactive, it can really help to engage students who might not be as comfortable participating in like a traditional discussion.
You're right. And it can also be a great way to promote higher order thinking by encouraging them to synthesize information from multiple sources, evaluate different perspectives, and create something new and original.
This is giving me so many ideas. It's exciting to see how technology can be used not just to deliver content, but to create these truly engaging learning experiences
Right.
that promote deeper thinking.
Yeah,
But I have to admit, sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed by all the tech tools that are out there.
I hear you.
How do we choose the right ones?
Right.
And use them effectively without getting lost in all the bells and whistles?
And that's a valid concern. The key is to be intentional about your tech choices.
Okay.
Before you introduce a new tool, ask yourself, how will this tool help my students engage in higher order thinking? And make sure you're providing clear instructions and modeling how to use the tool effectively.
That's great advice. It's not about using technology for technology's sake.
Right.
It's about using it to enhance learning and to help our students reach their full potential.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable with different tech tools, you can start to get creative and explore new ways to use them to engage your students in higher order thinking.
I love that. It's about staying curious, staying innovative, and never being afraid to try new things. Now, speaking of new things, one of the sources mentioned ChatGPT. I know there's been a lot of buzz about AI lately, but I'm still not quite sure how it fits into education. Can you shed some light on that?
ChatGPT is definitely a powerful tool, and it has the potential to transform the way we teach and learn.
Okay.
It's essentially a chatbot that can understand and respond to natural language.
So it can, like, have a conversation.
In a way, yes. It can generate human-like text, translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and answer your questions in a surprisingly informative way.
Wow, that's a lot of capabilities.
Yeah.
But how can we use ChatGPT in a way that promotes higher order thinking? I'm imagining some teachers might be concerned about students using it to cheat or to avoid doing their own thinking.
Those are valid concerns, and it's important to address them head on. ChatGPT can be a powerful tool for learning,
Right.
but it's essential to use it ethically and responsibly.
So how do we do that?
Well, first of all, it's important to have open and honest conversations with our students about the ethical implications of using AI tools like ChatGPT.
So we might discuss, like, the importance of academic integrity, the value of original thought,
Exactly.
and the risks of relying too heavily on technology.
Exactly. And we can also use ChatGPT in ways that encourage critical thinking and creativity. For example, we could use it to generate different perspectives on a controversial issue, or we could have students use it to research a topic and then evaluate the information they find.
That's a great idea. It's about using ChatGPT as a tool for exploration and inquiry, not as a shortcut to avoid doing their own thinking.
Precisely. And as AI technology continues to evolve, it's going to be more important than ever for us to stay informed and to find ways to use these tools ethically and responsibly in our classrooms.
This is such an exciting time to be an educator. We have so many tools at our fingertips,
It is.
and it's up to us to use them wisely
Right.
to create engaging and empowering learning experiences for our students.
I couldn't agree more. And remember, technology is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
The most important thing is to create a classroom culture that values curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking.
That's a great point. It's not just about the tools, it's about the environment we create
Right.
and the values we foster. So how do we create a classroom culture that truly embraces higher order thinking?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll dive into more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Welcome back. We just finished talking about all those cool tech tools that can boost higher order thinking.
Yeah. But like you said, it's really that classroom culture that sets the stage.
It does. We can have all the fancy gadgets and gizmos in the world, but if our classroom doesn't feel like a safe space for exploration and risk-taking, those tools aren't going to be very effective.
So true.
That's a key takeaway from these sources, for sure. A H2-rich classroom is one where curiosity is valued, creativity is encouraged, and mistakes are seen as opportunities for learning.
It's not just about asking the right questions or using the right tech tools. It's about creating an environment where students feel comfortable thinking differently, challenging assumptions, and even making mistakes along the way.
You got it. Remember, learning involves taking risks, trying new things, and sometimes, failing. If students are constantly afraid of getting the wrong answer, they're not going to be willing to push themselves or to think outside the box.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So how do we actually create that kind of culture? What are some specific things we can do to foster a HOT-rich classroom environment?
Well, one strategy that comes up over and over again is modeling.
Modeling. Okay.
Our students are always watching us. They pick up on our attitudes or behaviors. If we're genuinely curious, passionate about learning, open to new ideas and different perspectives.
They're more likely to be that way too.
Exactly. It's not just about telling our students that it's okay to make mistakes. It's about showing them by our own actions that we value risk-taking, that we're lifelong learners ourselves, and that we're not afraid to admit when we don't know something.
I love that, like being vulnerable in front of our students.
Right. It makes a big difference. And we can be more explicit about our thinking process, too. Think aloud when you're solving a problem, or ask students for their feedback on a lesson or activity. Show them that learning is an ongoing process, and that even teachers are constantly learning and growing.
Such a powerful message. It's about normalizing struggle and making it clear that it's okay to not have all the answers right away.
For sure. But modeling is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Right. What else is important?
Creating a safe and supportive space for discussion and debate is crucial.
Discussions are so important for promoting higher order thinking. When students have to articulate their ideas, defend their reasoning, and listen to and consider different perspectives, they're really pushing their thinking to a deeper level.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just about having discussions, it's about facilitating those discussions in a way that encourages respectful dialogue, critical thinking, and active listening.
So like providing them with sentence starters.
Exactly. Or teaching them strategies for respectfully disagreeing with a peer. You could even create a set of ground rules for discussions that emphasize listening to and valuing diverse viewpoints.
Those are great ideas. What about working together?
Collaboration, that's
It-
another essential ingredient.
It's such a key skill for the 21st century, and it's also a fantastic way to promote higher order thinking. When students have to work together to solve a problem, they have to pool their knowledge, share their ideas, negotiate different perspectives, and come up with creative solutions.
Absolutely. And you know what the sources suggest is one of the best ways to promote collaboration?
What's that?
Project-based learning, that thing we talked about earlier.
Right, where students get to tackle those real-world problems.
Mhm.
But how do we make sure those collaborative projects are truly promoting higher order thinking and not just busy work?
Good question. It all comes down to design. Design projects that are challenging, engaging, and relevant to students' lives. And provide clear guidelines and expectations, as well as opportunities for feedback and reflection throughout the process.
So we might have a rubric that outlines the criteria for success.
Yes. Or regular check-ins with groups to make sure they're on track and using those higher-level thinking skills.
And we can also encourage students to reflect on their collaboration process itself.
Exactly.
Like, what worked well?
Yeah.
What challenges did they face?
Uh-huh.
How did they overcome those challenges?
Right.
What did they learn from working together?
It's all about helping them to not just complete the project, but to learn and grow from the experience.
It is. And when we create a classroom where collaboration is valued, supported, and reflected upon, we're setting our students up for success in all areas of their lives.
Couldn't agree more. This is giving me so much to think about.
Me too. It's really inspiring to see how we can weave higher order thinking into so many different aspects of our teaching. But let's be realistic for a moment. As teachers, we're constantly being pulled in a million different directions. How do we find the time and energy to actually implement all these strategies and create this ideal HRT-rich classroom environment?
It's tough, I know. But you don't have to do it all at
Well,
once.
that's good to hear.
Start small. Choose one or two strategies that resonate with you and that you think would be a good fit for your students.
So maybe start by incorporating more open-ended questions into my lessons.
Exactly.
Or try a think, pair, share activity.
Yeah.
Or dip my toes into project-based learning with a smaller scale project.
Exactly. And as you and your students become more comfortable, you can gradually add more.
It's about making those small but intentional shifts that can make a big difference over time.
You got it. It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Right.
There will be days when things don't go as planned, and that's okay.
That is very okay.
The important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to create a learning environment that is both challenging and supportive for all students.
That's encouraging advice.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that we're all in this together.
we are.
We don't have to have all the answers right away.
We don't. And you know, one of the most powerful things we can do as teachers is to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Yes.
When a student asks a thought-provoking question, when a group comes up with a creative solution, when a student perseveres and has that aha moment, take the time to acknowledge and celebrate those moments.
It's about creating a culture of positive reinforcement,
Exactly.
where students feel values, encouraged, and empowered to keep stretching their thinking.
And those small moments of success can have a ripple effect, inspiring not just that student, but the whole classroom.
I love that. So powerful. This has been such an inspiring conversation. I'm feeling so energized to go back to my classroom and try out some of these strategies. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to touch on assessment. How do we actually measure and evaluate higher order thinking skills? It's something a lot of teachers think about.
For sure. It's a great question. Traditional assessments, like multiple choice tests, often fall short when it comes to measuring those higher level thinking skills we've been talking about.
Right. If we're asking our students to analyze, evaluate, and create, we need assessment that goes beyond just memorizing facts and definitions.
Exactly. And the good news is there are lots of assessment strategies that can help us do just that. We'll explore those in detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive on higher order thinking. We're talking about how to assess those higher level thinking skills, the ones that go beyond just memorizing facts and spitting them back out.
Right, because those old school multiple choice tests don't always give us the full picture.
Exactly. So let's dive into some strategies that can help us really see those critical thinking skills in action.
Okay, so as you said, those traditional tests sometimes miss the mark. But there are so many other assessment strategies out there that can give us a much richer picture of what students really understand.
I'm ready to hear about them.
Yeah.
What are some of these alternative assessments that can help us measure higher order thinking?
Well, one approach that really aligns with what we've been talking about is project-based assessment.
Oh yeah, project-based assessments.
So instead of just answering questions on a test, students get to show their understanding by applying their knowledge and skills to a real-world problem or challenge.
I'm thinking back to that example we talked about earlier, the one where students designed a sustainable energy solution for their community.
Uh-huh.
That kind of project would naturally involve all those higher order thinking skills. Research, analysis, evaluation, problem solving, creative thinking. And whatever they create, a presentation, a model, a written proposal that becomes tangible evidence of those skills in action.
It is, and it allows us to see how they think, how they approach problems, how they use what they know in a real context.
It's assessment that's both authentic and engaging. And that's a win-win in my book.
For sure. Another approach is performance-based assessments. These are all about asking students to create a product or show off a skill that demonstrates their learning.
So that could be a debate,
It could.
a presentation, a role-playing activity,
Yes,
a science experiment, a piece of writing, even a musical performance.
exactly. There are so many possibilities. The key is to choose tasks that line up with your learning objectives and that let students show what they know in a way that's engaging and meaningful to them.
It makes sense. One of our sources also pointed out that even something as simple as using more open-ended questions in our assessments can make a big difference.
It can. Those open-ended questions, unlike the ones with just one right answer, really force students to think critically, analyze information, and come up with their own responses.
Right, right. They let us peek into their thought process.
Hmm.
So instead of asking, what's the formula for the area of a triangle?
Yeah.
I might ask, design a garden that maximizes space using different geometric shapes and explain your reasoning.
Perfect example. That challenges them to use their geometry knowledge in a creative and practical way, and their explanations show us their problem-solving strategies and how deep their understanding goes.
I love that. It encourages them to think for themselves and to express their ideas in their own words. It's not about just spitting back information. It's about showing understanding and applying knowledge in real ways.
It is. And one element we can add to a lot of these assessments is self-reflection, getting those students to think about their own thinking.
Ah, metacognition. It's so powerful for them to become aware of their own thinking process, what they're good at, where they need to grow.
Exactly. We can encourage that by asking them to reflect on their learning, what worked well, what challenges came up, and how they handled them.
So we might ask, what was the hardest part of this project for you? How did your thinking change as you worked on it? What would you do differently next time?
Exactly. These reflections, they don't just give us valuable insights into their thinking, they also help build self-awareness and a growth mindset.
So important. And one tool that can be really helpful here is rubrics.
Rubrics are great. They provide that clear framework for evaluating student work.
Right.
They outline those specific criteria and performance levels.
They help us to grade those complex tasks and projects in a way that's consistent and fair.
Yes, and they can be incredibly helpful for students, too.
Oh, for sure. When we share the rubric beforehand, it gives them a clear idea of what we're looking for, helps them know where to focus their efforts. And when we even involve them in creating the rubrics,
Even better.
they develop a deeper understanding of those learning goals and what it takes to succeed.
It's about empowering them to take ownership of their learning.
This has been so eye-opening. It makes me realize that assessment doesn't have to be this scary, separate event. It can be a natural part of learning, a way to not just measure progress, but to support and enhance it.
Exactly. When we see assessment as a chance for learning, we shift the focus from just giving grades to helping them grow as learners.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, this whole deep dive has given me so much to think about. I'm feeling inspired and ready to bring more higher order thinking into my teaching and into my assessment practices.
I'm glad to hear that. And just remember, start small, try things out, and see what works for you and your students.
Great advice. I know our listeners are feeling just as inspired as I am.
I hope so. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
Nurturing higher order thinking, it's not just about academics. It's about equipping our students with the skills they need to thrive in all areas of their lives.
It is.
It's about empowering them to think critically, solve problems creatively, communicate well, collaborate, and make those informed decisions.
It's about preparing them to be engaged, thoughtful citizens who can really make a positive impact on the world.
Beautifully said. So, as you go back to your classrooms, remember to embrace those aha moments, celebrate those small victories, and keep nurturing those higher order thinking skills in both your students and yourselves.
What a powerful way to end our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovery. It's been a pleasure.
It has.
And to all our listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. We hope you've picked up some valuable insights and strategies to bring higher order thinking to life in your classrooms.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep inspiring.